Welcome into the Shot Show. I'm your host, Wyatt Shot. Today we're going to be recapping week 7 of the college football season. But first, emergency breaking news out of Happy Valley today. Penn State has fired James Franklin. They are officially moving on to greener pastures. Just stunning stuff from Penn State. What stuns me more is the timing of the decision rather than the decision itself. I just think that firing him in the middle of the season with his $50 million buyout is a little, not a little, it's very risky. It's incredibly risky. You're opening up the floodgates now for a wild coaching carousel. People are going to be pulled from all over the place. And in my mind, there's a real chance that this burns you if you're Penn State. Like I said, James Franklin has a $50 million buyout that he still has to pay, okay? So you're paying $50 to your old coach not just to not be there anymore. You still have to hire a new staff. There's going to be a bunch of other jobs that open up, like Florida, Auburn, maybe LSU, maybe Oklahoma, maybe Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin leaves for one of those previous jobs I just mentioned. And now you're looking at a situation where maybe you don't get your first option, maybe you don't get your second option, maybe you don't get your third option. And it's like, is your fourth option better than James Franklin? Do you know that for sure? Are you willing to put $50 million worth of money on that decision? Not only that, probably closer to $70 million because you still have to hire a new coach. So you're looking at minimum of $70 million that your athletic program's got to be spending just on hiring and firing coaches. I think it's a risky decision for that reason. Bo Pelini is kind of the direction that I point, where like Nebraska fired Bo Pelini for not being able to get over the hump. And then they missed on a couple of hires after that, and they've kind of been in free fall mode ever since. Matt Rule has since been hired, and he's got that program looking better than what it was, but Nebraska suffered a long time for the firing of Bo Pelini, and I worry that the same thing could happen here with Penn State. Now, there is still a world, of course, where Penn State gets a home run hire, A-plus kind of guy, and they're able to go contend right away because the roster is going to be good enough, assuming that they don't lose everything. The recruiting class that you had right now is gone. They've already got 5 decommitments today at the time of recording this video, which is 4:50 Central Time. They've already lost 5 recruits in their high school recruiting classes, whether that's 2026 or 2027. It's a risky move for Penn State, man. It's a risky move. Now, if they can go out and hire the guy that they want, then this is going to be all worth it. The 2 names that come to mind, well, the one that's being reported right now is Matt Rule, the head coach at the previously mentioned Nebraska, which is pretty ironic if you ask me. Matt Rule is apparently the guy that they're trying to go after, but I can't help but mention Curt Cignetti. I believe that if Penn State hires Curt Cignetti, it immediately elevates them into national title contention because he's just that big of a program changer. He's just that good of a head coach. If he's able to do it with Indiana's level of athlete and Indiana's level of talent, imagine what he could do with Penn State. I know that's kind of a lazy argument. It's not, it doesn't just carry over. However, it's hard to ignore the results of Coach Cignetti so far, especially with the big win that he just got at Oregon. I think that before we move on from the James Franklin firing, we do need to give him his flowers a little bit. 6 10-win seasons in 9 years, a Big Ten championship, a playoff appearance with 2 playoff wins in that time, both coming last year in 2024. Multiple New Year's Six Bowls, appearances, wins, whatever you name it, he's done it there at Penn State. He completely revitalized this program and dragged them out of the dark ages, out of the disaster and the horrific stuff of the Jerry Sandusky era and all the scandal that came out. Penn State football was in an awful spot. They needed to modernize, and James Franklin basically just grabbed that program and just drug them out of the old way they used to do things, of the dark times in Penn State football. And he forced them to be relevant again, and he's produced a lot of great football players, a lot of winning seasons. Couldn't win the big one, but not many coaches have, and I think that James Franklin is... Anyone that has been around him, I think, would tell you that he's a great man. He's a better man than a football coach, and that's saying something because he's won a lot of football games. So Penn State owes a lot to James Franklin, even though things didn't work out in the long run. Crazy timing, man. College football is gonna college football. It's a wild time all the time. Let's move on and talk about some of the games that happened this weekend. And the aforementioned Indiana Hoosiers take down the Oregon Ducks in Autzen Stadium by double digits. What a win for this Indiana program. What a win for the sport of college football. This was a prove it moment for Indiana. This was a gut check. I didn't think that they had the athletes to hang with Oregon. I thought that it would be too much to overcome. This is what some people call like the freeze point or the boiling point. because Indiana was able to dominate against inferior competition. But once you play a certain caliber of athlete, you can kind of throw some of those stats out the window. Water's not going to freeze till it gets to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And Indiana was kind of flirting with like it being 33 degrees. And it's like, well, when it gets to 32, are they still going to be able to do this? Yeah, they did. They were able to do it against a very good team, someone that I'm still very high on in Oregon. I don't think Oregon was fraudulent, although you could say their Penn State win means a little bit less. I don't think Oregon's fraudulent. I think they've showed a lot of good things throughout this season. I think they're still one of the top 5 teams in all of college football. I just think Indiana happens to be better. And I went into this game picking Oregon. I thought Oregon can even cover the 7.5. They proved me wrong. They proved a lot of people wrong. They went in there and dominated. Fernando Mendoza unlocked something a little bit different with this offense. I should give all the flowers in the world to Curtis Rourke. He did a great job whenever he was at Indiana, but he was really immobile because of the ACL tear that he had in the preseason. Not his fault. It just so happened he couldn't move around a whole lot. And Fernando Mendoza not only can move around, he can also make some real NFL throws that I don't think Curtis Rourke was capable of making. Fernando Mendoza is on track to be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the 2026 NFL draft, and very, very deserving. He's got the frame, he's got the arm, and he has the results now on the field against elite competition. Indiana won this one legit. Like, they won this one straight up. There was nothing fluky about it. They dominated on their defensive line against Oregon's offensive line. They shut down those talented Oregon receivers. I didn't think that they'd be able to run with them in the back end. I thought DeCorian Moore was going to have a big game. I thought Kenyon Sadiq was going to have a big game. Not the case. Not the case whatsoever. Just complete dominance from Indiana from start to finish. They kind of let Oregon stay around in this one. Mendoza threw a pick 6 that was kind of unforced. They were driving the ball on that drive, and Oregon got the pick 6. They kind of hung around for a little bit longer, but it didn't matter. The better team won in the end, and they won by double digits. Nothing fluky about this one. Elijah Surratt, probably your player of the game. 8 catches for 121 and a touchdown. They were looking to get him the ball early and often. Just a complete domination and a wonderful coaching job by Curt Cignetti and his Indiana staff. And I saw someone else talk about this. It was actually Bud Elliott on the Cover 3 podcast, and then I sent the same question to some of my friends in a group chat and said, relative to the job, is what Curt Cignetti's doing at Indiana the most impressive coaching job in the history of college football? And I'm going to have to go back and do some research on pre-2000s football back in the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the 70s and 60s to look and see what kind of turnarounds happened. But as far as I'm concerned, and as far as my memory serves me, this is the most impressive job that any coach has ever done in the history of college football. To take a program like Indiana, who had 10 seasons of making a bowl game. They've been playing football for over 100 years in Indiana. They've only made a bowl game 10 times. To come in year 1 and go 11-1 and make the college football playoff, and then after that season, you lose your starting quarterback, you lose your starting running back, you lose a lot of key contributors off that team, and you come back in year 2 and you're even better, and you get a win against a top 3 team on the road. Unreal stuff from Indiana and Curt Cignetti. I think it's the best coaching job in modern college football history, maybe even all time. The remaining schedule for Indiana is Michigan State, UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State, Wisconsin at home, and at Purdue. Show me 2 losses out of those teams. Out of those 6 teams, show me 2 losses, because I can't find them. And that's what it's going to take to keep them out of the playoff. They might even take a 3rd loss to keep them out of the playoff, depending on how well that Oregon win ages, which I think it will age very well. So we'll see. We'll see with Indiana. I think that they are going to be one of the top seeds in the playoff this year, and they're actually going to be able to win a couple of games in the playoffs. Let's move on. Texas takes down Oklahoma in Red River. This was a defensive slugfest. Both of these defenses were elite. Both offensive lines played very poorly. Didn't matter. Texas came out on top, and the defense, like I said, completely dominated. 3 forced interceptions. Oklahoma ran the ball 30 times for only 48 yards. No plays longer than 25 yards, and Mateer went 20 for 38, passing nearly 50% completion percentage. Texas's defense tore Oklahoma apart. They couldn't run it between the tackles. The only success they had running the ball came on their first down runs when I think they caught Texas sleeping a little bit. But Oklahoma knew that they weren't going to be able to run the ball consistently. Texas did not have to allocate a lot of resources to stopping the run. They were able to drop 7 and drop 8 into coverage. And that's what led to Mateer having to throw it into these tight windows. And when you come off of 3 weeks of rest and 3 weeks of nursing an injury, you're going to see things a little bit slower. You're going to see things a little bit later. He also wasn't the most accurate with the ball, which is something he struggled with his entire career. But I referenced Bud Elliott once again. He said Texas is catching the interceptions that Auburn and Michigan weren't, because he was throwing interceptable passes in those 2 games. They just weren't being caught by the defense. Texas caught them, and it showed in a big way. 0 touchdowns for Oklahoma. They had 2 field goals in the first half, and that was the only time that they were able to get points on the board. OU has real problems, and they won't be able to field a healthy Mateer for the rest of the season now because they decided to play him today. If you waited and you rested him and you lost this game with your backup quarterback, it wouldn't look as bad in the eyes of College Football Playoff Committee and the College Football Playoff world, and Mateer gets to heal up and actually be 100% for some of these games later on. You throw all of that out the window because he got beat up badly against Texas on Saturday, so you're not going to get him 100% for the rest of the year, and you have a gauntlet of a schedule left. Your easiest game is the first one, and that's at South Carolina. And if that's your easiest game, then you know you got problems later on. They go and get Ole Miss at home. They play at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri at home, and LSU at home to end things out. It's gonna be tough. But let's talk about Texas. They get the win, of course. I think this was the best that Arch Manning has looked in his career. The numbers are not eye-popping. You had to watch this one to understand how well Arch played. He goes 21 for 27, 166 yards and a touchdown. No interceptions, no turnovers, no fumbles. He played very, very clean. He played within the offense. He played within himself. He was not pressing. He was not forcing things. Really, really impressive stuff from quarterback 1 in Austin, Texas. The offensive line started off incredibly poor. They had 3 holding penalties in the first quarter alone, 3 penalties on the first 2 drives alone. Nick Brooks got his first start at left guard on the offensive line. He is the true freshman from Buford, Georgia. Big, tall glass of water. I think he's 6'6", 350 pounds, and he is every pound of that and every inch tall. He is a large human, as Kyle Flood likes to say. And he started off rocky. He had a false start. He had 2 holding penalties, and then after that, he really settled in. Texas themselves really settled in. They were able to run the ball so well. Trey Wisner is the MVP of this game, hands down. He carried the offense on his back, and he was very, very clearly hurt. The last 2 drives, he was limping after every single carry. It did not matter. He stuck it out the entire game, and he carried Texas to a win, and the Longhorns needed this one. They could not afford to drop another game, especially this early, especially to your rival in Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl. A 3-3 start would have been disastrous, and you could have lost the locker room. I think the Texas Longhorns responded really well to the criticism that they faced, and fairly so after the Florida loss. So now the Longhorns are going to move on and play play Kentucky in Lexington, rather, this weekend. Let's move on and talk about some other games. Not going to go into too much detail for the rest of these. Let's just skim over them and hit on it. Bama handles Missouri. They ran it better today. I think Jam Miller had a much better game. The offensive line got some push against a really good Missouri front. Missouri did as good as they could as containing him, and they got after you a little bit, but Alabama responded well. Ty Simpson is playing like the best quarterback in all of college football. I know that he had the clip of looking at his box score, looking at the stat sheet after the game and not being happy with himself, but I think he played more than well enough to get the win there at Missouri. Did a really good job defensively limiting Ahmad Hardy, but the quarterback got out a little bit. Bo Pribula got out into space. He ran it for about 6 yards a carry, over 60 yards rushing. That's something that Alabama struggled with under Keenan Womack, under Kalen DeBoer. With the quarterback run, it's always been a problem. I know Alabama fans aren't happy about it, but you played well enough to get the win. I think Bo Pribula actually really struggled too. If you want to talk about him, he bailed on some clean pockets. He was not seeing the field well. He wasn't getting the ball out quick enough, and it showed. He threw 2 costly interceptions, especially the one on the last drive where they had a chance to go down there and win it. Missed a couple of open receivers. Let's see, what else we got? Oh, yes. My North Texas Mean Green Eagles fall to South Florida. This one was never close. I don't think UNT ever really had a chance in this. We do a pregame show on North Texas television called Mean Green Game Day. I was the only analyst to pick North Texas to win, I was the only analyst to pick South Florida to win, and I got ridiculed for it relentlessly. And I said, guys, the wrong team is favored here. North Texas hadn't played a team with a pulse. They went to overtime twice with Western Michigan and Army. Those are 2 non-quality teams, if you ask me. And then they had to take on South Florida, who was battle-tested. They have a different caliber of athlete at South Florida than any of the other teams that North Texas has played. That really showed. I think it took the North Texas team by surprise just how outmatched they were physically and athletically, to be frank. Drew Mestemaker looked human for the first time. He came into the game with no interceptions. He throws 3 of them against South Florida. It happens, He was due for some interceptions. Drew Mestemaker is still a great quarterback, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. North Texas has a long way to go on defense. Eric Morris and Skylar Cassidy got to get that thing right. The schedule lines up really nice. You get UTSA at home, That'll be a nice game to bounce back against. It's probably your toughest opponent outside of Navy. I can see them dropping one more and finishing this thing up 10-2. Definitely not getting out of the playoffs, though, and if they did, it would be a splattering. South Florida's got to stay perfect. They got a big game against Memphis in a couple of weeks. That will be their biggest test for sure. Auburn, probably the best 3-loss roster in the entire country. So many position groups I favor Auburn over so many teams in the country, but the one I don't is quarterback. And unfortunately, that is the most important position. And my God, did it show again against Georgia. Receivers consistently open. Jackson Arnold just not capable enough to get the ball to his playmakers in open space, not able to run the offense efficiently. And the lack of quarterback evaluation in the portal is going to cost Hugh Freeze his job. You missed on Peyton Thorne, you missed on Jackson Arnold, and you were not able to you were not able to place a great quarterback around this elite roster that you've built, and it's going to cost you your job. And you probably should have been a 10-win team. You probably should have made the college football playoff, even with a hard schedule, but you're not going to because you missed on your quarterback. Incredibly important in college football, but even more so nowadays in the transfer portal era. Let's see. USC gets a big win. They kind of handled business against Michigan. They are very much alive for a college football playoff spot. They got to take care of business against Notre Dame, give them their third loss, knocking the Irish out of the playoff contention. We'll see how that one goes. Michigan struggled today. They're just kind of what they are. I think this is about an 8-win football team. Bryce Underwood really struggled in this one. Not too much to say. I think USC was just clearly the better team all around. The Big 12 as a conference lost today. Illinois loses one to Colorado. TCU drops another one to Kansas State. Arizona State loses to Utah. And now all of your teams that were packed in tight together, a lot of them have 2 losses. Some of them have 3 losses. And it's really clearing up to say that Texas Tech is your only hope to get into the playoff. And the Big 12 conference needs them to stay perfect. Do not be surprised if the officiating in Texas Tech football games are suspect down the end. They need this team badly to make the playoffs. They will do everything in their power to make sure that happens. As a Texas fan, I saw it all the time with Texas and Oklahoma getting the favorability from the officials because they knew that these teams were going to be the ones that were going to make the playoffs and give them a shot to put their brand on the national stage. That does not change just because Texas and OU left. They will find a new target, and now it is Texas Tech. And now they don't have to split the attention between Texas and OU. It is all eyes on Texas Tech. Get that team to the playoff should be the mission. Pitt takes down Florida State. Say what you want about Florida State. I think Pitt has found some magic with their true freshman quarterback, Mason Heinzel. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it. The kid can play. I'm going to figure out how to pronounce his name real fast because he is a baller. And, Florida State just kind of looks like a regular ACC team physically at certain position groups. At wide receiver, they look elite. But besides that, man, it's hard to say that this looks like a power, like a college football blue blood, like a power football school. It's hard to really emphasize how far they've fallen in terms of body types at Florida State. They just have not recruited at the level that they need to. Let's see, who else do we need to talk about? Who else do we got? Washington still looks like a playoff contender, and I really do mean that. This team is like Damon Williams, 450 passing yards, and also go ahead and tack on 100 rushing yards, 4 total touchdowns, no turnovers. He is one of, if not the most dynamic quarterback in all of college football. The public hasn't woken up to it yet, but I'm telling you right here on the SHOT Show that Damon Williams is a stud. Remember the name for the future. Washington's going to be a heavy favorite to make some playoff games next year, to make the playoff next year and win some games if they portal in the right talent around him and they're able to retain him. Texas A&M passed another test. It was a little scary at times. You had Casey Concepcion go down with an injury. You had Le'Veon Moss go down with an injury. I think both of those guys are okay. Florida hung around. They were really attacking Desmond Ricks at the beginning of the game. They were throwing it right at him and having a lot of success. Those receivers at Florida are so talented. DJ Lagway kind of starting to look like his old self again. Still struggled with holding on to the football. He had an interception. He had a fumble. But Florida's really talented. They should have... Man, this team should not be 2-4. That's what I keep coming back on. They should have beat South Florida. They should have beat LSU. They should have lost to Miami and Texas A&M probably. But, man, they're doing a disservice by how poorly coached this team has been so far in the Billy Napier. And they need to fire him immediately, to be honest with you. But I think they'll wait till the end of the season unless things get real ugly and they're like 2-6 or 2-7. And then to end this thing out, is UCLA going to lose another football game like ever again? Or are they just like the best team in college football now and, we had no idea. We were just missing out the whole time. Also, I think it's weird that the offensive coordinator is getting all the love on all the graphics and all the talk around UCLA. He's not even the interim head coach. I understand that the offense has been really good since he's taken over play calling. And, there's just storyline with the dad and everything. Works at CBS, and I understand. But put some respect on Tim Skipper's name, man. He's been the interim head coach, and he steered this thing the right way. He's got UCLA winning some football games. That is all I've got. Thank y'all so much for watching. Week 7 was really fun. I can't wait for Week 8. College football's really got shaken up, especially with the firing of Penn State's head coach James Franklin. Wild stuff. It's going to be a wild time in college football. Thank you so much for watching. My name is White Shot, and this has been The Shot Show.